Again, to the November 13th Board of Selectmen of Wenham's meeting. We called this meeting to order at about 5:45 and began with 2 executive sessions. We did make a decision to postpone the 3rd executive session having to do with historic preservation restrictions that will appear on an agenda at a later date. As is our custom, we will begin the meeting with public input. And I think we already know the people who are here for a reason, other than something that's not on the agenda, and there's no one else in the audience. So I'm going to skip over that item and move on to announcements. Jack, you have the announcements.
Oh, we didn't really skip over. We invited people. There's no one to come up. So
yes, we didn't skip over it.
Yeah.
We had it. Good point.
Announcements. Okay. The most important one I have all year long is the leaf pickup, and I'm honored to actually announce this tonight. The Wenham Department of Public Works.
I thought it was the water ban, the most important
That's the
one.
second. That's
the least.
That second?
That's important in the summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, for
fall.
violators.
We're into fall now.
The Wenham Department of Public Works annual leaf collection begins November 13th, which is today. 1 or 2 passes of loose leaf collection followed by a bagged leaf collection in December, if needed. Of course, that's subject to it snowing and raining like this week here. Please use caution when moving loose leaves to the curb for pickup and refrain from blowing leaves into the road, which can be hazardous to motorists and certainly not on your neighbor's property. Some of these people put the leaves a third away out in the street, you know.
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to get away from.
And that, I mean, some of these piles are huge, down the Cherry
And little
Street.
children play in them sometimes.
Yeah, and they jump in them, and
they be a little nervous.
with their school. Yeah.
So use care.
Yeah, the DPW will start the west side of Wenham and move east. They make every effort to pass through each street twice, but due to uncertainty of the weather, which I just mentioned a minute ago, this time of the year is not always possible. Check with the town website for scheduled route and weekly status updates. Please contact Wenham DPW with any questions you may have at 468-5520, extension 6. Do they get many calls, by the way, in this?
They do. Yeah, this is one of the, I'd say, trash pickup, mist or otherwise, loose leaf pickup. Yeah,
Do you ever get any? I had to call you last time when missed pickup. Ever get any calls on missed pickups?
For trash and recycling?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. And generally, there's a reason behind it, and Casella is responsive. Yeah, they
came by the next day when I complained to you about that.
And the DPW is also very responsive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in getting back to you at least about what they've done. But Sheila is always real quick to call you back and
say,
we,
this is the other reason why we try to get this up on the website on a daily basis, is because it's a question that's on everybody's mind.
Yeah, and I tell people, I've been asked a couple of times.
Here they come.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. The Wenham parking ban effective November 15th.
Perfect. Chief walks
to March 31. I'm going to go through the rest of these, right?
Yes, please.
Chief Thomas Perkins, who just arrived in time for the critical announcements, announces the Wenham Police Department begin enforcing a winter parking ban, which will restrict overnight parking effective November 15th through March 31. According to town bylaws, the parking ban states that no vehicles should be parked on the streets between midnight and 6 a.m. So, Tom, how many tickets do you ever issue during the course of the winter for that ban?
Dozens.
Dozens.
No, it's usually not a problem. It's there for the occasional bad snowstorm when people just blatantly leave their cars in the way of the snowplow.
So what do you do, call them up, and do you call the house up or something like that? Or?
We call them up, we've knocked on the door, and on the very rare occasion we've had to tow them.
Okay, that's what I would hope. Except on Morgan Street, that's exempt. Wenham Police will begin issuing warnings in order to encourage compliance. You just heard what the police chief said. I don't have to go through the rest of that. For more information, if you don't understand what the hell that means, call 468-4000. Notice a public meeting regarding proposed Main Street traffic improvements. Oh boy, this is big. Tonight was just, I can't believe how many people come down Arbor Street and take a right on this. What's going down? Where are they coming from down Arbor Street?
From Hamilton, Ipswich, Topsfield, Pingree School.
Mighty.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
The town is seeking to improve the roadway in intersections of Route 1A at Cherry Street, Monument Street, Arbor Street. Town and state officials are in agreement. A lot of thanks to Peter, regarding the need to make improvements to this corridor. A public meeting will be held on Thursday, November 29th at 7 p.m. in the Selectmen's Room at Town Hall to discuss the proposed project. Full details about this proposed project, including notice of public meeting, may be found on the Town Administrator's page at the town website. Please email Town Administrator Office at nroebuck@wenhammass.gov or call 5520 extension 2 with any questions you may have regarding the public meeting. Expect many people to show up for that?
We're hopeful that that's what MassDOT's looking for. So we'll be reaching out directly to, as we discussed, on a museum, tea house, the Maples, the church, downtown
Yeah,
businesses.
but do you think...
I've been talking it up with the businesses and so forth that are here, because they're all very interested.
But if it's only sparsely attended, would that be a negative impact on the town for this?
Not necessarily. We just have to make sure that we have done the best outreach that we can.
Yeah,
They
okay.
actually, this is not a regulatory or statutory requirement. We've already fulfilled kind of the baseline standard for securing or for moving forward in the process with the state in terms of public outreach based on the conversations we've had in previous meetings. But they're to access a particular pool of state funding for the project. They're looking for even more comprehensive public outreach.
Do you think we can get any complaints or adverse reaction to the proposed plan?
I would expect some questions. We'll have the Bayside engineers will be here, and we'll be going through the presentation. We're about 95% done with the presentation at this point. But the information, we tried to make the information accessible in terms of what we've done, where we are, what the next steps are going forward. There's a 4-page announcement that's up on the town website now that's included in the packet.
You would think most people in Wenham would applaud this. I mean, that...
I think we've...
Show of hands, show of hands.
This is the police force here, really.
Right.
They better be
I mean, we've
applauding it.
certainly tried to get the word out best we can, you know, on the website, at our meetings, in the local paper about it, and all the feedback that we've gotten so far has been very positive. But I would anticipate certainly questions.
change, yeah.
Because it's a pretty significant change, especially if we're talking about two synchronized
Yeah.
you know, signals.
All right.
Just one thing before you go. Recent input I've gotten, I guess, has been a couple of questions about what's going to be done in the short term. And I think that's going to be included a little bit in that presentation, because there is that whole short term.
Yeah, I mean, I think best case scenario, I just heard back from Bayside Engineering earlier this afternoon, who've been in regular contact with the District 4 MassDOT office that has jurisdiction over 1A. And kind of best case scenario, start to finish, you know, getting both the funding, the design work done, and then construction funding and project completion. Best case scenario is 3 to 4 years, start to finish from
Right.
today.
Right.
So,
Oh, it's longer than I would have thought.
and
Yeah.
that's really fast tracked, quite honestly.
Fast track, state. Okay.
State fast.
Well, just because the state has a 5-year capital plan, like many places do, and there's a pretty significant backlog in terms of other
Oh, that's the problem. It's a money problem. then.
projects in the queue. Yeah, exactly. So it's a matter of getting in the queue. We're trying to find 1 or 2 different programs that are relatively small dollar projects in the scheme of what MassDOT does on an annual basis.
I see.
To try to get in a little sooner than that.
Thank you.
Well, and it's welcome anyway, in my opinion. The 375th Anniversary Historic Mock Town Meeting at the First Church in Wenham on December 5th at 6:30. Please join the Town of Wenham's 375th Anniversary Committee and the First Church for a historic mock town meeting. Celebrate the end of Wenham's 375th anniversary year through the interactive history of town meeting in Wenham from 1643, most of you won't remember that, to 2018. Questions or requests for combinations? Why would you want to have a combination? We don't have any hotels in town. What are they talking about?
No, any accommodations.
Full
Yeah, exactly. If there's any accessibility issues.
Oh, could have written it different. Okay, and maybe directed to Jackie Bresnahan at 5520 extension 4. Wreaths Across America in Wenham sponsorship information. Saturday, December 15th at 12 p.m., the town of Wenham will lay wreaths on our veterans' graves simultaneously with participants at Arlington National Cemetery and communities across the nation. You can help by sponsoring a wreath for $15 each, volunteering, or inviting friends to help. The Veterans Committee is heavily involved in this, as John and I both know. We're both members of the Veterans Committee, although we both missed this morning's meeting. To learn more about Wreaths Across America, including a link to online donations for wreaths in Wenham. By the way, that means we're going to put a wreath on every veteran's grave.
Every veteran's gravesite.
Every veteran's gravesite in both,
right.
yeah.
It's certainly the goal.
Yeah, as they do down in
for the Main
in
Street,
Arlington.
for the Main
So-
Street Cemetery.
The Main Street Cemetery.
So this is a trial. We're sort of a trial of the two towns for the Wreaths Across America to see if they can get a little more community sponsorship to
Yeah.
doing the same type of thing that they do down in Arlington. And that's a 40,000 person volunteer operation, what they do Wreaths Across America down to Arlington.
Impressive. Donations for wreaths in Wenham, visit the town website through December 3rd. Can't put a check there, but anyway. Donations by check will be accepted during regular town hall hours at the Treasurer's Collector's Office through November 26th. Made payable to Wreaths Across America. TM, I guess, contract Karen Tyler, Director of Veteran Services, at 978-356-3915, or certainly our town hall here, and that Nikki would be able to answer that with any questions. So, yeah, this is, we'll see what happens.
It sounds, I thought I heard someone say the other day at the Veterans, one of the Veterans things, that there'd been a fair amount of money collected here at Town Hall already, so.
About $1,500 so far. That includes the $500 that was donated by
from
the
the,
Hamilton Wenham
Rod
Rod and Gun Club.
includes that.
Oh, yeah.
But there have been $1,000 in donations from
Yeah.
residents so far.
That's great.
So that essentially means 100 wreaths of the 400 or so Veterans Cemetery gravestones
Great
that are
start.
at the Main Street Cemetery. So the goal was to get to 25% in the first year, so we're already there. We still have several weeks left to go, so hopefully we continue
great.
to increase our numbers.
Yeah, it's.
Those are all the,
Buy 3, you get 1 free.
You know, I couldn't
So-
find that anywhere on the website, so.
John just made that up.
I have to say, I particularly looked for that. So I
New
don't know whether
guidelines.
that's
John's going to make the fourth. though.
only
He's gonna-
true. I don't know.
I pay for the 4th.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
right.
just, I couldn't find it
Sorry,
written
Kathy.
anywhere.
I didn't see that either. It's not my announcement, so it couldn't be true. But John just made it true.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's it for announcements. So, Chief, we were going to move the appointments up on the agenda to right now, as long as you feel like everyone who you expect to be here is here. Otherwise, we can move.
We can make you wait an hour and a half if
wait.
you want. You know, up to you, you know.
No.
We will seize the moment. if that's all
Okay,
right.
so we're moving down to new business, and it has to do with the appointment of 2 new police officers. And the chief,
I do have a question first, though.
Yes, sir.
Do you guys not shave your faces anymore?
see, now you get to plug.
There you go.
You get to plug the
That's a layup.
I
charity.
noticed our captain the other day.
Yes.
Now I'm noticing the chief.
That's correct.
Okay.
Last November, we did the No Shave for November fundraising for cancer awareness. This year, it's a similar program, but it's actually going towards veterans' benefits.
That's very cool.
That's cool.
So we're not doing Abraham Lincoln yet.
No, it'll be interesting to see at the end of November.
Yes, and get to shave it off.
Well, thank you for the explanation.
Yes.
Oh,
No, it's good
pleasure.
PR.
Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you for
I
coming.
brought Captain DiNapoli up with me. I'm going to have the captain actually talk a little bit about the process that got us here tonight, where he took a firm leadership role in it, having a year under his belt and getting to know our policies and ways. And if you want to kind of explain.
Yeah,
Welcome.
we're real happy to have Reserve Officer Cicchini and Safalo here that navigated through the process. We put a lot of thought, the chief and I, into how we wanted to run the process. We met with Town Administrator Lombardi and came up with a solid game plan, and we structured the questions around the character of the candidate, and we we gave everyone consistent questions across the board. We did what's called consensus scoring. So how we did it, myself, the chief, Town Administrator Lombardi, and then Sergeant John Gray, to give equal representation across the board, gave their scoring, and then we combined everything together. And what we also did is we tied in what they brought to the table relative to education and seniority. They got some points for those as well. And then we had a real solid background investigation process to vet out, further candidates or any issues. And I put a lot of thought and time into speaking with friends, relatives, neighbors, past co-workers, current bosses at their places of work now, and gave it a lot of thought. And after navigating through that whole process, obviously we're real proud of them, and I'm sure their families are as well, that they're before us here tonight. We couldn't be happier with the quality of the candidate, and we know they're going to represent our agency and our town with class and dignity, without a doubt.
Great,
Very good.
great.
If I might ask, how many candidates did you
Pretty
start
impressive.
with?
We started with 6.
process.
One withdrew in the very early stages, so 5 went through the entire process.
Okay, good.
That's pretty impressive. That's a
Yeah.
pretty impressive number.
Were all 6 reserve officers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So-
Okay, we'll have them come up now and,
Yeah.
Sure, and I will make a motion.
come on up,
And
ladies.
we'll vote, and then we can do what we usually do, which is, take pictures and clap and things. So I move to appoint Mia Cefalo as, and you'll notice the dates here are different, and they're different for a reason, having to do with training, I think. I move to appoint Mia Cefalo as police officer for a term beginning December 1, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019, and Amanda Cecchini as police officer for a term beginning February 4th, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019, with both appointments conditioned upon successful completion of the physical abilities test, PAT, required for entrance into the police academy. Is there a second?
Second, enthusiastically.
Is there any further discussion? If not, yes?
Just prior to you voting, I
Certainly.
apologize.
It's okay.
This just came to my attention as we were walking over. Could we change the February 4th to February 5th?
February 5th. So we'll make a friendly amendment to that motion that I just made, so that Amanda Cecchini as police officer for a term beginning February 5th, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019. Is there any further discussion?
I'll second that again, so anyway.
Second, the amended. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimously. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Welcome. You all pass, yeah.
All right, for the folks to come up.
Absolutely, please.
Congratulations to me again, Amanda. Congratulations.
With the chief. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, families all.
Just come up, they'll take you a picture with her.
Take your pictures.
Trying to be in front of the sailboat.
Yeah.
And then have the seal in it too.
Huh?
Rather than the seal?
I don't think you should be in there. You should fill out the too.
Oh, yeah, he's not getting out of it that easy.
I love photo ops when I'm not part
Are
of
we
it.
good? Are we in?
Yeah.
Police officer, police chief.
Go ahead.
Me.
I don't know about me. I know Andy, she took police.
Oh, I had the opposite, but okay. What is this? Ted Burley guy right there, isn't he?
How many days?
Probably. It's Beverly.
Yeah, I was told it was Beverly, so.
I'll see that
That's
again,
me.
Richard, I'm sure. But you guys want to get any pictures of you?
That might-
Kids at all? You tell me.
Yeah, Jackie's here to take
Yeah, I can
pictures
take,
of.
whoever needs something, take.
Notice how we designated you right away, Jackie.
Oh, there's some
So for
Oh,
families,
people maybe have you?
Oh, you want me in it?
Absolutely. Thank you for getting out of this early.
with the sale.
All right, start with me. I'm ready, so.
Here, one of the police officers, he says Beverly. So-
I'm
No,
done.
right there, take a picture.
He doesn't look familiar.
Right, you see, everyone else is. It doesn't look familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys want one without me in it, I'm fine.
I want.
See that?
Yeah, okay.
Peter answered my question, Catherine.
Yeah, was I right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I know, really, are you gonna like turn your arm around? It looks like we've appointed 3 police officers.
The pay is better here, though, you know? Sure.
Thank you.
Before you made him laugh, I hope. Todd.
Somebody make me laugh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck to both of you. I'm sure we'll be seeing you guys around town.
Oh, they've got a fun few months ahead.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We may not be seeing them much, right, until they finish their training.
Yeah.
Keep us posted.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Chief.
very much, Chief. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. We even stopped the rain for you.
I know that was very nice.
Chichini.
Chikini. That's not what the chief said.
That's not what she said?
It's not what she said, and it's not what the chief said.
So
We
the
better
Burley guy
confirm
must
that.
have been Mia's son.
No, Mandy's
Mandy's
father.
No, the Burley guy, I said.
The guy who,
The guy who was not in uniform.
oh, not in uniform.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know.
The most burly guy there is the guy walking out the door right now. I didn't say anything bad. Amanda's father was a police officer from Beverly.
Correct.
Gee, what did you say, Catherine? They all left.
Okay, I know. They could have stayed. They knew they were welcome.
Announcements.
Okay, so moving along back in the agenda, I think we did the announcements and we jumped down to D, so we'll back to reports. And I think our town administrator has a report, which if I
We should have the camera sweep the audience to see the overflowing crowd that's remaining.
Yeah, it was nice to have them here.
Well, no, remaining, I'm saying.
Well,
you know.
remaining. Well, we've got our tried and true remaining.
I thought I saw a couple of police officers that went in addition to Amanda's father, too, anyway.
Might have been.
Just the one.
Just one?
Yep.
I'm talking about the guys in the back of the
No,
room.
those were,
All of them? Okay.
Our guys. Okay, Peter, your report, please.
okay. Update from the Board of Health. They are going to be holding a public hearing on December 13th. And we will probably add that to an announcement at the November 27th Selectmen's meeting. But just wanted to give the board an update. State legislature passed some new laws around tobacco regulation in the past few years. What that is going to do is increase the minimum legal age to purchase tobacco products to 21. But the way that the law is set up is that it's going to be an incremental increase to 19 years old in 2019, 20 years old in 2020, and 21 and 21.
Easy to remember.
Leave it to the state to come up with creativity.
So there have been almost 200 municipalities that have already gone straight to 21 before the state law goes into effect.
Agreed.
Incrementally
Frankly,
stepping
that
them up.
makes more sense to me, but
Out of 350,
Right.
200 of them? Yeah.
And so our Board of Health is essentially seeking to do the same. So they're looking to go right to 21 instead of taking the incremental approach. They've contacted the only individual who will be impacted in Wenham, the owner of Ridgetails.
right.
And they brought him in, sought his feedback, and he actually supports going directly to 21 for a number of reasons. And so they're having a public hearing, but just wanted to get the word out about that. In case
And they have complete authority there.
that is
They'll vote and they'll
entirely
notice it.
within, they will be amending their regulations. They already have regulations in place, and they will be making those changes, and that's within the Board of Health's purview.
Great.
Budget update, it's been a while actually since we talked about that. Some key numbers that have come in to kind of make the picture a little clearer for FY20. We got the actual student enrollment data from the regional school district a few weeks ago, and
was there some good news?
I think it is good news, honestly. The overall district enrollment is for this year, which counts for FY20, is actually 40 students lower than it was for the previous year. the net impact to us in terms of the enrollment shift is pretty much exactly in line. So I think we had projected $162,000 net impact, and it's going to be $165,000. So on the order of magnitude, it was over. It has been over $300,000 of just enrollment shift costs for the past 3 fiscal years.
Correct.
So. Stepping it down by 50% is going in the right direction, and really the only reason why the number is as high as it is because it's a 3-year rolling average. We're still feeling the effects from the previous 2 years.
Right.
So the projections, both from NESDEC, which we know aren't the most reliable projections, but from McKibben, which we were all involved in this past spring, the school engaged to do a deeper dive on the Hamilton and Wenham enrollment numbers and projections. It's, you know, what they both agreed on was enrollment the decline should kind of plateau, and the shift that we have seen should also stabilize, which has borne itself out at least for this year. So good news there. It's in line with what we had thought, and hopefully we'll continue to stabilize so that we're just paying for the net operating increases of the district's budget year over year, as opposed to dealing with the shift on top of that. Our free cash balance was certified by DOR the end of last month at just under $1 million, $977,000. And this is about $250,000 less than our FY17 certified free cash. This was something that we anticipated when we had our initial discussions about the FY20 budget. You know, we're getting tighter on the margins on our local receipts to try to balance the budget, and in continuing to deliver a balanced budget under the levy limit, at least on the town side. You know, expenses for our departments have remained static over the past several years, and so the net impact of that is less free cash at the end of the year. And we built in a decreased reliance on free cash for the FY20 budget, which is where we are.
Yeah. And kudos to the finance department, actually, in its transitional time, to actually have free cash certified by October 31st. That's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
Lack of staff and changing and part-time.
Especially where for about a month and a half, our town accountant, who's responsible for making sure that DOR has all of relevant reports in order to calculate and certify the free cash, was, you know, basically the only full-time staff in the office. We had part-time coverage for both the finance assistant and the treasurer collector / finance director position. So
Yeah,
absolutely
so
correct there.
thank him for that, please.
I will. And in the meantime, over the past couple weeks, we have been meeting with department heads. They submitted their preliminary budgets for FY20. We've been meeting with them and going through them together, and we'll have a recommended budget once we get on the other side of Thanksgiving, prior to our December 1st joint meeting with the Finance Committee, our Saturday meeting where the department heads give all their presentations. So that's coming down the pike in the next few weeks as well.
Okay.
And then lastly, I realized that since we last met, because it's been 3 weeks, there actually was a pretty significant vote in a lot of ways that was taken the night after the last selectmen's meeting here. And I included in the packet the statement that I made at the school committee meeting. I don't think it necessarily warrants reading verbatim again, but the long and the short of it is that I was selected to represent both towns at the table as a voting member of the school committee for the purposes of negotiating
New labor
the
contract.
new teachers union contract, and I'd met with both boards of selectmen before the negotiations started, gotten their initial policy direction, relayed that to the school committee. Negotiations then proceeded along based on where they ended up. Neither town felt that they could support the amended terms and conditions that were agreed upon and ratified by the union, and so I was the lone dissenting vote when the school committee voted on the teachers union contract on October 24th. It did obviously pass and is now taking effect because it had expired the end of August of this year. So it's a new 3-year contract. I think probably the most important part to include or to share out is that the COLAs were a 2.5, 2.75, and a 2 over the next 3 fiscal years. And the other major cost impact to the contract was the addition of a new Masters Plus 15 step, which has a net financial impact of about 0.75 COLA on the budget. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Well, first of all, thank you for carrying the message. Apparently, they didn't shoot the messenger, so that's a good sign.
No, I think they understood the conversation that we did have at the school committee meeting that night and an executive session the couple weeks before. They understood the town's position. I think, in particular, the fact that we're about to sit down with our employees and negotiate new contracts with the ASME union, police union, and the fire union. You know, and where the schools are 50% of the budget, it would be awfully difficult to take a position, especially on COLA increases, with them and not be consistent with what we supported for the school employees, recognizing that it's not a straight comparison in terms of overall compensation. So that was, I think, one of the key pieces of feedback that I got from the towns that I relayed to the school committee.
Thank you again.
Yep. John, you had something. This would be the time. Selectmen's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I have 3 points or 3 commentaries with personal experiences I've had over the last 2 weekends in the Hamilton-Wenham community. The first was a week ago Saturday. The Community House of Hamilton-Wenham had and hosted one of their largest fundraisers, which is called the Harvest Dinner, for those who are not aware of this. And as part of that wonderful evening, they recognized 2 people for awards, and both happen to be Wenham residents. One is Connie Gordeau, who was given the Joanne Holbrook Patent Award, and that's very, very top shelf stuff.
Connie's very top shelf.
And Connie is a class act. Her whole family was there, and it was just a very, very nice recognition for someone who's done a whole lot, and you don't even know she exists most of the time. The other person was Lenny Dolan, and who I had never met, but apparently this man does a lot around town.
Lenny does a lot, yeah.
The person who spoke to his recognition must have gone on for 15 minutes, and I thought, how is it that I don't know you? So I had to self-introduce afterwards, and he was the Volunteer of the Year Award, and I thought that was really a wonderful recognition for 2 Wenham citizens that do a whole lot, and they set the example for the rest of us to follow in similar suit.
It was in the Chronicle, I think. I think it was in the Chronicle.
Yeah.
Well, in anticipation of that evening, so they
Yep.
had Connie's picture and then Connie got those picture and
Yeah, if you've never been to the Harvest Dinner, I strongly recommend. It's a great evening. They do things very, very nicely. It was catered.
I was away. I don't know where I was, but I'm usually away. Anyway,
So
I meant to go to that.
the second point I was going to make is, again, the Community House of Hamilton Wenham, hosted by Melissa Elmer, the director, and the board of directors, recognized their origins, which came from, I didn't even know all of this history, but I know more about World War I now than I ever did through all of my years of studying history and that sort of thing. But there were 8 men from Hamilton and Wenham who died in World War I, and 4 of their families were quite prominent families here, and they, having lost their sons in war, wanted to do something to help the community out. And they started the fund and donated most of the funding for the community house to be built. And thus the origins started, and it has been kept moving along the way. And I didn't realize that Gordon College, Gordon Divinity, Wentworth Institute were also funded by many of these families as part of their contribution to society. And I got to tell you, it was riveting, the enormous work that went into this. This is 1 year of work by everybody researching the family history. They put together a book with photographs of not just their family members, but from World War I. These men were flying planes in France when this country was not even had not even committed and entered into the war. President Wilson was just reticent to getting involved, and they were flying planes for the French Air Force that had Wright brother engines in them. So one of the commentaries they made was many of these people went over there on horseback and came back on airplanes. That's how technology was changing so quickly. So it was one of the best events I've ever been to, and I really hope that we can get it on the local cable station, because I think everybody would enjoy it. They recorded the entire evening.
There was also an extensive write-up in the Chronicle.
Oh, yes, that's right.
All 8 people. I think
right.
there was 4 or 5 officers and 2 enlisted men, or something like 6 officers and 5 officers and 3 enlisted men.
Yeah.
And that, and that one of them was a major, and that was a lieutenant, and yeah, that was interesting to read. Of course, this is the 100th anniversary, which is
Right.
I'm going to see if I can get some of the books over here.
Seem to have some extra ones.
They did.
Yeah.
that'd be good to get.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get them along with the recording. See if I can get that onto. I've already talked to Bill Melville about seeing if he can get it onto the local cable station. The third thing is what took place over this past weekend, Memorial Day, with the enormous number of Veterans Day. I'm sorry, that's right. Wrong time of the year. With the events that we participated in as a board, as a community, it was just spectacular to see people over here at the memorial. There must have been 200 or 300 people there. Beautiful day. The scouts were there, the veterans were there, families were there, and we do have a very beautiful monument to remember these people who have given so much to us. So it was a great weekend. Thank you.
I wasn't here to attend our veterans, but I attended one in California,
Which is great.
Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, I'm sorry, and that
Yeah.
the weather was nicer there, I think, than here.
It was sunny, but chilly.
Chilly, yeah.
Yes, it was.
The breeze came along.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the First Church hosted all of us to come in and have a brunch afterwards.
Right. Which was very nice, done, I think prepared a lot by the Boy Scouts.
By the Boy Scouts.
Yep.
At least I can say the desserts were good. I didn't make it to the other end of the table where there was real food, as was pointed out to me.
It was substantial food, too.
It was good. And a lot of people there. I mean, standing room only, which was nice. The church is very generous in the sharing of their space. Okay, so we will move from reports to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. And I will make a motion to approve items A, B, and C in the consent agenda as presented, which involves some approval of minutes, acceptance of a gift for the 375th Anniversary Committee, and a one-day liquor license at the Wenham Museum, including the release of the executive session meeting minutes from September 18th. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Second, but I have a question. Is that possible?
Technically, no, but go ahead.
The amount of money from contributions is, do you know what that figure is?
Yes, it's $930.
Oh, it's pretty
It's
good.
actually in our
Huh?
backup information as well.
Okay.
But yeah, for the committee. So,
Sorry, Madam Chair, I
That's
didn't have
okay.
a lot of time to get
That's
through
okay.
all of this binder this week, so.
okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's the consent agenda. Moving on to new business, we have already completed the appointments, so that's the first item. The second one is potential approval of a side letter of agreement. Like I said, I think the titles are longer than the motion sometimes, with the Wenham Call Firefighters Association, and Jack has that.
Yeah, before we do that, is it, I don't know if it's appropriate, shall we congratulate Bruce Tyre and Brad Hill on their
Yes,
victories?
Good idea.
good for you.
And that they do a lot of work for us, both of them, and they show up at our annual town meeting, they show up at our parades, and that they come here and give updates quarterly, I guess, and that, you know, I know for, but it was a tough race. I saw a lot of signs for his competitor out there, and that he must be relieved that he hasn't been challenged in my recent memory
Long time.
for a long, long time. And so congratulations, Brad, and obviously, Bruce, you're such a dynamic person, no one dares to challenge you. And
That's a little different.
is there any other Republican senators in the Senate other than him? Must be.
Yes.
Well, he's the
There are.
majority.
I know he's the majority leader,
but
But he is not
Minority
a
leader.
majority leader of one.
Yeah, no,
He's a minority leader. in the Senate.
Minority
of one,
leader,
excuse me.
yeah.
there's a couple more.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, both of them.
Yes, that's well deserved. Thank you for remembering that.
All right. Potential
So
approval.
on E.
I'm
Well,
on
it's
E.
only potential until we vote on it, I guess.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm going to read the motion. I move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed side letter of agreement with the Wenham Call Firefighters Association to increase minimum BLS transport compensation for the duration of the fire-based EMS pilot program.
Is there a second?
There's a second.
Discussion.
For the public's sake, is there a brief overview that you can,
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll read it.
somebody could share?
I don't know if it's brief, but I'll read
Well,
fast like I usually do. And my wife will
best
tell me,
you
you read too fast, Jack. Amend Article 19 to allow 2 hours minimum pay for the 2 responding firefighters who provide EMS transport to a medical call. And we need to do something that they just can't, right? You're right.
That's right.
Excuse me, to a medical call initiated between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. and 4-hour minimum pay for the 2 responding firefighters who provide EMS transport initiated between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Although department standard protocol is for 2 firefighters to conduct EMS transport on any given call, any additional responding firefighters who provide said transport for extenuating circumstances shall be similarly compensated. Terms of the side letter are agreed to by the union in a ratification vote on November 7th this year, and shall be effective upon the approval tonight by us. So, and I've already read the article. Both parties agree to revisit the interim compensation measure if a determination is made that the town is going to continue to provide fire-based EMS BLS services beyond the initial term of the pilot agreement. So that's, I don't know if that's a summary or not, but I'm just read. So anyway, as Peter described in executive session to us, that this is fair. You know, we want people to respond. We put a lot of time and effort into this ambulance, and we want to have a first-class service. We want to make sure that the people who respond to these in the middle of the night are adequately compensated. And then all of us and the 3 members of the board and Peter totally agree that that we need to improve the compensation as so described.
And it's a relatively new initiative that's in its infancy, so
Right.
we're pleased that it's happening, and I think the department is very proud of themselves for taking this on and look forward to success, so.
Yeah, as Peter also described, we're earning money on this service, and so therefore, you know, it's only fair that we pass along some of the revenue to the people who are responding, because if they don't respond, we're not going to have a service.
Yeah.
And that, so this seems very, very fair to all of us. And anybody else want to comment?
No, I completely agree. We just need to, I guess,
I'm all set.
But we have to then
we have to vote.
actually vote.
Yeah. So I'm never quite sure whether, would you like to ask for the vote, or do you want me to ask for it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go. I guess we just did
Right.
that.
Thank you, Fire Department, one more time.
Yes. Okay, the next thing we have on the agenda is also an item for Jack, and it's review and potential approval of minor modifications to the MOA with Cataldo Ambulance.
I move to approve the proposed fee for services modification of the memorandum of understanding with Cataldo Ambulance Service for the ALS backup and authorize Peter Lombardi, our town administrator, to execute the agreement. And since there's a whole page here, I can't summarize this, so I'm going to ask Peter to summarize it.
Okay, we'll take, have a second.
Yeah, have a second.
before we-
Second?
Okay, Peter, yeah.
This is even easier than the last one, actually, Jack. So when we transitioned to the fire-based BLS model, Cataldo, which had relatively recently, before our transition, bought Lions Ambulance based out of Danvers, and had assumed both BLS and ALS services for us. Cataldo, when we changed over and started doing the BLS in-house, they agreed to stay on as our ALS provider, which are about 10-15% of our calls. And the original agreement with them included a provision where we would pay Cataldo, the Wenham Fire Department would pay Cataldo $400 for anytime there was an ALS call that they responded to, that we billed out as a transporting service. And so what we're actually looking to do is just modify that from a flat $400 rate to 50% of the monies collected, which actually, if you look at the addendum that was included in the packet, just based on the calls that we've gotten in the 6 months that we've been running the service so far, we'd actually increase our revenues, our net revenues, by a little over $1,000. This is something that we reached out to about Cataldo, and they were receptive to. They didn't have any issues making that modification. And it's based on the premise that we generally see what the split is on private insurance versus Medicare billed out. So it's net positive for the town in terms of revenues to make this change, and our service provider supported it.
Agreed,
So it
yeah.
seemed
Nice.
like something that made a lot of sense on our end.
I'm not sure that was easy to summarize in mine.
When you live it, I guess maybe it was.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good job, though.
Great. Next on our agenda,
I'm next.
potential, we have a lot of potentials tonight.
Yeah.
Potential approval of a side
Make
letter
potentials
of
actuals, how's
agreement
that?
with AFSCME regarding our on-call phones. And this was the subject of our second executive session that we're now going to vote in open session. And
Okay.
John
So
has
I was going to
that.
read the motion and
Sure.
then see if I can describe it as I understand it. I move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed sideline letter of agreement with AFSCME Council, Local 205, regarding DPW on-call phones. So this is more just procedural change than it is actually a...
It's just basically approving the side letter. There's nothing, there's no amendment to the contract. The AFSCME contract, as I mentioned earlier, is expiring this coming June, and we're going to be starting contract negotiations soon. But where we're changing the current practice of providing town-owned cell phones for the DPW employees who are on call in the winter months for sitting and salting, to just
their
being called directly on their own personal phones. And where this particular issue was an issue that was brought up at the bargaining table the last time around, the side letter seemed
So it's just to
like
clarify and
Correct.
proceduralize in the
Yep.
right way so that we don't have
So-
miscommunications.
correct.
Communications.
And the union's fully supportive of the side letter as we've laid out.
So I made a motion. Is there a second?
Second? Sure.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's unanimous. Okay. Review and potential, this is letter H, potential, review and potential approval of minor modifications to the Longfellow Road and South Street Road repair home rule petition. That's my agenda item. I guess I will say something, well, I'll read the motion. I move to approve the proposed language amendments in the Longfellow Road and South Street repair home rule petition. Is there a second?
Second.
Do you want to, is there anything you want to say? That the amendments seemed quite innocuous.
They're very innocuous. This is the Full Employment Act for Senate Legal Counsel.
Exactly. I couldn't.
I don't, I having gone through the home rule petition approval process before, this is generally how it works. The board is authorized by the vote of town meeting to make any such minor modifications because this is inevitably how it works. I think the good news, big picture, is that normally this feedback from Senate Council means that we are nearing the finish line of approval from both the Senate and the House.
Wow.
Because it includes the third reading edits, which is basically kind of the end of their internal review process just prior to a vote. So they are all, none of the proposed changes have any significant policy implications for the home rule petition as initially drafted or the project once it is approved. And it has been vetted by town council here with no issues at all.
I'll ask. Yeah, and as an example, one of the amendments is to change the word road, capitalized to road, not capitalized.
Wow.
But they're moving it
Heavy
through.
lifting on the part of the selectmen.
Heavy lifting, but it was
do the
exciting
tough
to
work,
see
Jack.
that there was some action happening, and it was moving ahead, because the goal, right, is to try to do this work next, whatever that's called, construction season.
Construction season, yeah.
And
So in order to do
bids
that, we have to go through a pretty extensive procurement design and procurement process. And before, we really can't move forward on any of that until the home rule petition is officially approved, although we don't anticipate any issues whatsoever. So hopefully, the legislation will get approved before the start of the next legislative session, which is the beginning of January, which is something home rule petitions, things that can be approved by unanimous consent are pieces of legislation that aren't necessarily held up by formal legislative session. So it could get approved in the next month or two.
Which would be great.
I have just one quick question. Hirak Shah, is that who is sponsoring this?
Nope,
bill?
that's Senator Tarr's legal
We met him,
counsel.
John. He was at the parade. We met him this year and last year. He was introduced by Bruce to us.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's right.
the guy with the camera.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
He took a lot of pictures. So I know that I made the motion. I can't remember if it was seconded or not.
Second, whether it was or wasn't, I'll do it again.
Okay. Further discussion on this? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's unanimous as well. The next item on the agenda is John's item, and it's a review of the Conservation Commission's original order of conditions and reconsideration of a decision for the town to plow Middlewood Drive.
I was going to
It's letter
suggest
I.
I'll again read the motion and then get the
Go
explanation
ahead, John.
out there.
Go for it.
I move the board rescind its vote of October 25th, 2018, based on the conditions outlined in the order of conditions. The town will not remove snow from Middlewood Drive.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Discussion.
Well, maybe Peter
Oh, you
should
gotta-
give
you
us the,
Sure.
I would like to add that I have walked the site very thoroughly. I did a lot of homework myself as to the history and remembered that there was a lot of contention with the Conservation Commission. The place is built on a peat bog and all kinds of restrictions and so on. So
Yeah, so following up on that, we went back, we had looked at the comprehensive permit for initial guidance relative to this project and any restrictions that would have been imposed by the town, and there were none specific to snow removal or storage in that. But then after the board voted back in October, we did go back to the order of conditions that had been issued by our Conservation Commission, and there were two specific provisions related to snow management that were included in the order of conditions that, having talked to our DPW director, there really is no feasible way for the town to comply with. So those two specific conditions are, it says that we would have a maximum 10% salt mix, so 90-10 sand to salt. And the town uses a 50-50 mix now, and there really isn't any way to send a special truck down the road. And obviously, you know, when they're plowing, they got on the back of the truck. If they're going out and doing the whole town, there's just 2 trucks. We couldn't have a third truck that only had a 90-10 mixture. So there's really no reasonable way that we could meet that provision. And then the other, it specifically says in the order of conditions that snow shall not be plowed into the wetlands at any time. And that realistically, if you go down there, there's just no way for that to be the case. And so that being said, the board, you know, based on the original comprehensive permit, the town has full discretion as to whether or not we want to plow this particular private way. And, you know, where the board had previously approved starting that for the first time this year, I think based on these conditions, it would be difficult on one hand for the town to be regulating what can or cannot be done down there, and on the other hand, you know, not be able to comply with those regulations if we were to take it on. You know, if a private contractor is doing this work, that's something maybe that they can work out in terms of doing more snow removal as opposed to plowing, and they can send you know, their truck down there with a 10% salt mix. But we just can't handle that operationally.
Yeah, and the requirements for that facility, that road there, we have big, heavy equipment that would be very impractical to try to move through there. Can we do it? I'm sure we could, but to meet the regulations that you're discussing makes it even more onerous as to, you know, who's going to be liable when there's a problem.
Well, and there's no interpretation necessary with the 2 regulations. Yeah. People could say, oh, well, they're not that heavy, or they're going to use the small truck, whatever, but those 2 regulations are pretty straightforward.
Correct. You're right.
And our inability to meet them is also pretty straightforward, so.
So I'm very convinced that we're now on the right track, and thank you, Peter, for doing the background work on this. It was very helpful. So, moved and seconded. Any further?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's unanimous as well.
Thank you.
Almost done, guys. Letter J is a proposed modification to the town hall holiday schedule, and Jack has that.
I was trying to figure out how to summarize this, but I don't think so. I move to approve the proposed 2018 Town Hall holiday schedule, including closures on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve and extended hours for the first 3 Fridays in January. Here's the explanation as written by our town administrator. Hard to summarize. This year, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve day holidays fall on Tuesday. Historically, we have closed Town Hall at 2 p.m. on the day before Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and New Year's Eve, and allow DPW workers to go home at 2.5 hours early on those days as well. Generous us. Since Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve are on a Monday this year, and since we expect very little traffic from residents and our contractors, for the 5 hours we would be open on those days, I am requesting, this is Peter writing the memo, I am requesting we close Town Hall for those 2 days. To make up for those hours, I recommend the town hall then stay open until 4:30 p.m. instead of 1 p.m. for the first 3 Fridays in January. That would be January 4th, January 11th, and January 18th. I have checked with all other town departments, the library, DPW, fire, police, and those department heads don't have any specific personnel or scheduling issues on their end that would preclude this one-time schedule adjustment for town hall during this holiday season. There you go. That's the lengthy summary. I don't know how I was going to summarize it otherwise.
That's about as short as it can be.
Yeah. That's-
Yes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just a note to say that if I'm correct in understanding this, this is giving folks time off before the holiday, but they're not working fewer hours overtime. So they're making up the hours that they're not here in January.
Correct. It's actually technically a half hour more time that they will be working for the 3 days that will be open late on those Fridays in January from the 2 days that we would have closed early on those 2 holidays.
I think it's probably a much appreciated
Good initiative, yeah.
initiative.
With everybody traveling
Right.
and everything. And, you know, I think
Try to
particularly.
keep people focused on days like that anyways.
Yeah, and I also think,
They would
you know,
work anyway.
there's not really such a thing as a skeleton crew in a lot of our town
We are a
departments.
skeleton.
Right.
We are
There's
skeletons.
a lot of one-person offices, so it's not where people could say, you know, I'll take off Christmas Eve, you take off New Year's Eve. You know, if we're open, somebody has to be here, and so.
Steve Oskowski, he could be the town clerk, Diane could be the town assessor, you know. Who knows what
Chaos
happens?
ensues.
Captain over there could be, you know, the deputy police chief, or I don't know, half an
I came
There you
in,
go.
I came in this past Saturday to get my book, and who was up there but the old Steve
Yes.
assessor.
He came and checked out.
I looked
who
under
was
the
Getting,
I saw him last week.
the hatch was opened up a little bit. I said, "Oh, would you come and visit?"
No, it's a reval year, and he
Reval
has
year,
been
and
helping
it's
out
time.
in the assessor's office. It's
Dedicated guy.
Steve Ozahowski's first time through, and so it's been really helpful to have Steve Gasparoni come back.
It wouldn't be his
and-
first time doing a revale.
I
He's been-
think,
He's been in Hamilton.
Steve well, right, but to be on, it's different to be on the Board of Assessors versus to be
The
in the
principal
jump seat as
assessor, right.
the principal assessor.
and I believe that Steve Ozahowski was here on Sunday, because he's the one who accosted me in the mailroom,
Okay.
wondering who was making noise.
Well, I
So he was there
saw
on
the
Sunday.
lights on. I thought,
Yeah,
geez, nobody's on the first floor. I came down the
Yeah.
hallway. I
I
went
didn't look.
upstairs, and I said, well, I got my binder, but the lights are on up here, too. And I see the light on in there. I said,
they're working.
what are you doing in there?
Thankfully working. Okay, so we have a motion that was seconded. And any more discussion? No?
I already asked all in favor, and you made your comments a minute ago, so we're
Okay.
waiting for the vote, that's all.
Okay,
Aye.
okay. And I'm going to back up for just a second to.
We can never go backwards,
yeah,
Kathy. We are
this-
always forward
No,
thinking.
this-
No reverse in this
This is just
machine.
a comment, I think that's going to be affirmed. So the Middlewood Drive, I'm fairly confident that the folks on Middlewood Drive know that we were taking this vote tonight, and that this is happening, that you've contacted.
I did reach out to them twice
Okay.
about this particular issue. I didn't hear back.
Right,
but
just
I-
wanted to
but
be clear that we
it's-
had tried.
Yep.
Okay, so the last,
Last but not least,
Excuse me,
I'm
I
sorry.
have a question in your follow-up. So what happens if they are plowing the wetlands? Who would anybody complain about that? I mean, you know, that,
I think that would be an enforcement issue for the conservation agent and the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
But I think clearly, if we're the ones who are violating it, that doesn't work.
yeah.
yeah, but
right.
I'm talking about on an
So they're-
ongoing basis, they're not supposed to
Hoping
plow.
there's a heightened awareness of it based on this
Apparently, right,
conversation.
right.
I hope there is, of the enforcement part, to your point.
I think it's certainly, more on people's radar now than it was in the past
Yeah.
several years.
Me-
It probably was an issue, you know, back when the project was initially going through the, you know, review and approval process, but then might have,
historically, it just had a lot of challenges, to say the least.
You know, up till maybe a half an hour ago, we didn't know about this, and now we know about this, and so that the town
Right.
does, and so I
Right.
mean, we just can't say, well, you know, that's, no, you know, hear no evil, see no evil, do no evil. We can't.
Oh,
you know,
right. Oh, that's
but-
true.
So that presumably that we should, I think we wouldn't be doing our job by not asking the enforcement officers to just, monitor that occasionally, in that, I would think, no? I mean,
Yep, and I guess my comment was now, I think that they have been newly reminded of it, so it will be easier for them to remember to actually check it out. But they do need to. We don't
Yes.
have authority over them, but a gentle reminder might not be a bad idea.
Oh, we do, if they're violating the order of conditions, we do have authority over them.
But the selectmen don't really have.
Selectmen don't.
over
Conservation
the-
Commission
Over
does.
the,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we have, are we set with that?
We'll revisit that in 2 years.
You remember, make a note, Jack, because I sure as heck aren't going to remember it in 2 years. I'll probably forget it by
I don't want to
tomorrow.
remember it.
So we have one piece of old business, which we've spoken about several
That's right.
times, so I think this is. hope this will
In
be-
Jack's absence, we got to bring him up to speed to let him
Yeah,
know
but
we're
he-
doing a
he
nice
was-
thing.
This is our third conversation, I
At
think,
least our second.
and it, on the intermunicipal agreement with the city of Lawrence for the transfer of the Bucher playground equipment. So John actually has the.
That's right. All right, I'll read the motion again, and we'll go from there. I move to, the board approve the proposed intermunicipal agreement between the town of Wenham, and the city of Lawrence for disposition of surplus playground equipment. So,
Second?
Jack, for your sake, Peter found a home for this stuff,
That's great.
which can be used and appreciated very much so by the town of Lawrence, so
City of Lawrence, they could use it. They're
it's,
broke.
yeah. We've got new
And they've had some
equipment.
tough times recently, too, so this
Tough times.
spring might be a nice welcome and an improvement over what they have there.
Certainly an improvement over what they have, and it is, as I mentioned before, it's in the neighborhood that was impacted by the explosions and the fires. So even more fitting, and this has now been approved. When we had originally talked about it, this was before it went through the approval process by Lawrence, and it was approved by the Lawrence City Council last week.
I don't know if it's possible if they ever do a dedication or something to it. If we knew, I'd probably take the time to go up and visit.
Yep, I will certainly relay that to Mayor Rivera and his staff.
Okay.
Parenthetically, that I go down School Street frequently, and that I keep marveling what a great job they did on that new,
New equipment?
yeah, it's great.
The Bucher equipment.
And
Yeah. We've
It's
got
much
lots of-
expanded. They have a little small basketball court. They have many swings, and they have that new stuff you put down and kids fall. It's a
Yeah, that's a big improvement.
big, and I noticed in nicer weather that there's usually one or two parents down there with kids when the weather is
Right.
not too cold.
It's not just the school
just-
kids.
Not, right,
Right.
particularly on the weekends.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought just visually it really looks nice. And if I was 5 years old again, I'd like to jump out of the car and
Well, you can
still
pretend,
can.
Jack.
You still can. You
Look
might
at
hurt
that
yourself.
guy.
You may
Call the
not
police.
bounce as
Call the
well
police.
anymore, but, all right, so we have a
Okay.
motion and a second?
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
It's probably not designed for somebody who
we
weighs
are
200 pounds or 195.
done. Man, I don't know. I think they have pretty
I'll bet you it
high
is.
limits. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Good night.
The
Thank
record,
you.
7:39.